Yes. Okay. Hello, this is Greg Price. I'm at the River Road Neighborhood Farm and Community Garden here with Garden City Harvest. And today we're going to talk a little bit about just some basic farm ecology and kind of what can happen in a space when we take over what was basically a neglected piece of ground. So, if you look around at all this ground here, this whole section here is about a half an acre. And not too long ago, it was just a field of knapweed. So this was knapweed, salsify, some beat down grasses. There was nothing really growing here very well. But as you can see now, it's doing quite well. It's a pocket of nice farm biodiversity. Took about 3 years to get our insect populations back up in here. It was a really cool process to watch. With each year, you would see new insects on the scene. There were always problem insects back here, and then it took a little while for things like centipedes and ground beetles to make their way back here. But sure enough, here we are in year 6 of using this field, and it is as alive as any other part of the farm. You can see we've got flowers all around. And one of the strategies is to spread flowers out around the farm to attract pollinators to the farm. So we're kind of on an island here, I call it. We're on our little ecological island because we're surrounded by chemlawns and all kinds of weeds, and we're in an urban, suburban environment. So it's whatever people want it to be. But what we're trying to do is put a little diversity back in here and allow for nature to help us out a little bit, because we are running an organic system here. So one of the things we do, if you look over here, it just looks like a bunch of weeds in a pile, but that is actually done very purposefully, because most things on a farm are disturbed. We turn them over, we till the fields, we make compost, things like that. But for pollinators, especially for the native pollinators, we need zones that we don't mess with. So we have there's some pallets layered in there. There's different size debris, from woody debris from trimmings and from trees, to weeds that we pile on top of there. And what that creates is a lot of niche habitat. So there's all kinds of different types of insects that can live in there, as well as snakes. If you look over here, there's actually a hole that was dug in this pile. And so part of our urban habitat is creating some niches for other critters to live too. And so that is the result of, there was a paper wasp nest in here, okay? And so a raccoon dug a hole in there and scooped out the larva from the paper wasp nest and ate the larva. And so we've been tracking this raccoon. She's been living here for years, and she has kits every year, and mostly doesn't bother. Like, we have chickens, and she doesn't bother the chickens too much. I mean, she has killed a chicken here and there, but that's when we make a mistake, either leaving them out too long or we didn't shut a gate correctly. But by and large, we live very peacefully here. And she eats all kinds of stuff. She eats choke cherries from these random trees. She eats strawberries out of the garden. I'll see her in the corn. We always know when the corn is ripe because the raccoon eats the corn. And so that tells me that we're rounding out our habitat in a nice way, as good as we can in an urban, suburban environment, because not only are we able to get our food from here and create all this habitat for lots of different pollinators, but now we also have another mammal on site that's kind of living, this back property behind us, a lot of trees, a lot of security for something like a raccoon. So I imagine she lives in one of these trees. But she's through here nightly. She's got 2 kits this year, and she dug up the paper wasp nest twice to get to the larva. And so, we didn't even know there was a paper wasp nest in there. So that's one of the cool things about what goes on here. The health of the plants are going to tell me a lot about what's going on in the soil. That's the microbiota, the things you can't even see, all the bacteria that are breaking down things into their basic parts so they can be pulled up again by plants, grown into tissue that we can then again eat. And the other cool thing that I've seen in these piles, and I totally get excited because I really, one of my main purposes is to wake up the ecology here a little bit, to see a little more diversity. But I've tracked 2 new bumblebees here this summer as well. So we've had the western bumblebee, which is rare now, which is a very large bumblebee with a white butt. And then we had also a Nevada bumblebee, which is another large one. But we've got 5 or 6 species of bumblebees now, and I've seen them flying in and out of some of our piles. And like I was saying, those insects need undisturbed habitat to spend the winter in. And so most of this ground is disturbed at one point or another throughout the year. But I've created these very purposeful piles to not disturb them and allow for the insects and any other critters that want to make a living here to have a home as well. And that's our ecology lesson at River Road for today. Thanks.